I'm 24 right now, and I've experienced in my life the drive, purpose, and meaning, and I've also experienced crisis. I experienced lack of meaning. I experienced what it feels like to go back from work, lay down on the floor and look at the ceiling and have no idea what you're doing with your life. I experienced the both end of the spectrum, and I would like to share with you my experience and what I learned from that. First of all, I felt incredibly purposeful when during 2022. After that, I've gone through travel with my friends. We were hiking through Italy for 14 days. It was a very beautiful journey. We walked a lot. We walked a lot, and by walking that much time with no stimulation, with no phones, and with nothing to really stimulate you, your mind starts to wander. Your mind starts to rewire itself, and it starts to emerge what is really meaningful and important to you. And what was meaningful and important to me at the time was to compete in my sport. So when I came back home from this travel, I decided to set my life in a way that was all in function to becoming the best athlete in judo that I can possibly become. And my goal was to qualify for the nationals at the time, because it was something that I've never did in my life. And at the end of 2022, after months of training where I felt incredibly purposeful, and by the way, by incredibly purposeful, I don't mean happy all the time. I mean that I was waking up, and all of the action that I was taking on a day-to-day basis were getting me closer to where I wanted to go, to the authentic goal that I've set out for myself. And even though there were days where I felt in a bad mood, where I felt not so good, I still felt purposeful. Even though I was doing hard things, even though I was experiencing pains from the body for this for all this training that I was doing, even though I was experiencing hunger because I needed to keep my weight low for staying in my weight class for judo, it was still meaningful and purposeful for me. And I would like to experience that period in my life once again. Conversely, in 2023, when I was getting closer to graduate from my university and becoming a physical therapist, I started to wonder if this is really what I wanted to do with my life. I started to really wonder if I was making the right choice, and everything I was doing felt useless. I was becoming nihilistic. By nihilistic, I mean what I was doing felt like had no intrinsic, how can I say? It was useless, basically. It seemed absurd to me what I was doing on a day-to-day basis. All my narrative, all the structure that I had, I was losing it. And it was so fucking painful. It was so fucking painful for me. I started to think, is this really what I want to do with my life? Is it just part of my job? Do I really want to do my job? Will I be able to retire my family by being a physical therapist? Do I really enjoy being a physical therapist? Will I be resentful in the future for myself to keep staying on this path? And so I felt lost, because I believe I invested 3 years of my life into doing this this graduation, and then I realized that maybe it's not my road, maybe it's not what I'm supposed to do. And so right now I'm starting to experiment and to understand how can I find meaning once again in my life. And what I've saw, because these are just two examples of periods of my life where I felt extremely purposeful, and I started to see some patterns, and I would like to share that with you so that if you are experiencing something similar, you could relate to my situation and eventually step out of this period. So the first step is that you're going to experience is likely crisis, probably the one that you're right now, which crisis in Greek is a word that could be translated as choice or either separation or discernment. So it's like a line drawn in your life. It's like the end of the chapter. A crisis is an end of the chapter. So if you feel purposeless, you're probably in the stage, and it's normal, okay? Just like fever comes when you're infected by bacteria. Crisis comes when you feel a loss of meaning in your life. Your spiritual balance, let's say, is put it upside down. So you're going to experience a lot of confusion, sense of hopelessness, and a lot of headaches. Personally, I told you, when I told you coming back from work, lying down on the floor and look at the ceiling, I was meaning that literally, because that's what happened to me when I was going back from my shifts as a physical therapist. I was going back from home. I felt so depressed, hopeless, and nihilistic that the only thing that I was able to do was laying down on the floor and start crying because I had no idea what I was doing. I'm not joking about it. That was what was actually happened to me. What I should have done at the time, what I would say to myself at the time, is that feeling a crisis, first of all, is normal. The second thing is you need to change your attitude towards that crisis. You cannot have the attitude of a victim. You need to take this crisis as an existential challenge. What do I mean by existential challenge? It's a question. You are facing a question that you can yet answer, but you will be able to answer it. But you have to be willing to grab your balls and take this as a challenge, as a question to be answered, as a problem to be solved. You gotta face it as you would face a physical challenge, as you would face a problem in your job, as you would face any kind of problem in your life, okay? This is just a problem that need and can be solved. So you gotta fight this existential challenge with grit and curiosity to find out what you really want or enjoy, okay? So look at this as a challenge and embrace the challenge. Because once you have assumed an active role in this, you're no longer a victim of the spiritual crisis that you're facing. You're an active player of this ballad, okay? This is a challenge. You're an active player that is trying to solve this game, is trying to solve this problem. Once you have assumed this attitude, you can start to move forward. And what I would suggest to you is some self-reflection. For self-reflection, I usually do some writing, for example, because writing allows you to slow down your thoughts and think in different ways than you do usually. And right now you are probably overwhelmed by questions like, should I choose X or should I choose Y? Should I choose chemistry or medicine, law or business school? Okay, this kind of question, this kind of thoughts. Or what is the right path to follow? What is the right thing to do? What is the perfect career? What is the perfect person? These are all questions that comes from an uncertain mind, then try to grasp some certainty. You are in this, you have this existential vacuum, you have this void that you're trying to fill with something that is truly, true, something that is real, something that you can grasp. But this is not going to lead you anywhere productive. You need to frame your questions in a way that you can search for purpose. Okay, you can start to search less easier answers. You start to search for more difficult answers. Oh, my lighting is bad. Okay, now you can see me better. So, the question that you should ask yourself are something like, what is something around me that I would and could fix? What bothers me around my life in general? What is something that I would like to put in order around me? What is something that I'm curious about and I want to learn more? Which activity makes me lose track of time? What makes me feel truly alive? Okay, try to have these more abstract questions. Okay, not something that you can grasp, not something that you can say in a clear way. And I know that it sounds woo-woo and it's not, you're searching for clarity and I'm giving you more questions, but that's the point. You need to make the right questions before you find the right answers. And the right questions are something that is more difficult than, should I choose X, Y, or Z? Should I do this career or that career? Should I stay with that person or this other person? Because these are the wrong questions, and the wrong questions will take you wrong answers. So start making yourself the right questions and write these questions down. The third step is incubation. So I remember that I found clarity when I was passing time alone. When I made this travel, with this vacation with my friends, and we were walking for a long period of time with no phones, with no social media, with no distraction whatsoever. We were just talking to each other, but there were a lot of hours that we were passing just walking and staying in our own mind. You start to thinking differently. Things are starting to come up from your brain. This phenomenon is also explained by neurophysiology or psychology, okay? Because your brain has two different modes in which he operates. There is the positive mode network, which is associated with sustained attention during precise tasks. In this moment, I'm using my positive mode network because I'm trying to explain to you a concept and I need to be focused on what I'm doing right now. And there is the default mode network, which is associated with rumination, free thinking, and the so-called shower thoughts. Have you ever found yourself sitting on the toilet or being in a shower and suddenly, oh, there is a thought popping up and there is the solution to the problem that you were wrestling. There is this answer that you could give in that precise situation and you would look like an OG, an complete OG. This is what the default mode network do. It takes problem in your mind and subconsciously solves it. You get what I'm saying? You exposed your brain to some questions and now your brain is operating in with the default mode network to trying to solve these problems for you. So if you're not engaged in any task, your mind starts to wander and solve these problems. It's like a laptop trying to upload the system. Your computer cannot really upload itself when you're using it. You need to stop using your computer, you have to stop using all the programs, and your computer will start to upload itself, right? And it requires some rest, and then the computer came back and it's uploaded, it works faster, it works better. Your brain works the same, it needs to stay quiet in order to upload the new informations. So I'm not saying that you should walk in the mountains for 7 days or 14 days and go to take some spiritual retreat, even though it could be very useful. But you can do it in a less drastic way. You could simply set an hour for the day when you are alone with your thoughts, when you're meditating, when you're just doing some free writing journaling, when you're walking. Walk more with no podcast, with no music, but walk alone. Stay with your own brain, stay with your own thoughts and see what your brain is suggesting you to do. Try to do it for an extended period of time. The fourth step would be extraction. Once you have passed sufficient time alone, your brain gathered some information for you. So now you need to extract those informations to your conscious brain. So you're going to use journaling once again. Yeah, I'm a big fan of writing. If you don't, if you haven't realized it yet, and use the same page that you used to sign up those questions and try to come up with the answers to those questions. Try to understand what makes you feel alive, what is something that you would like to fix, something that you would like to improve in your own day-to-day existence. And I tell you, will not come easy to you. This will not come immediate. This will not come as a clear answer. It will come as different options, different cues that you can follow and actually try to improve, but it won't be immediate. It won't be easy. You need to use this framework more and more again. This is what I do on a day-to-day basis to trying to understand what I should focus myself on, which goals should I pursue, all right? This is a framework to use again and again to receive clarity. And to finish this to finish this video, I would like to quote this guy out there, which I already quoted in the last video, which is Alexander Karelin. Alexander Karelin is the GOAT of Greco-Roman wrestling in the Soviet Union. He was like the best wrestler that has ever existed. And not only he is a specimen of a human, he is very strong, he is very conditioned, one of the best athletes that you can imagine. He was like 130 kilos and he was able to lift 130 kilos men and throw them up in the air. So it's something crazy. Not only he was extremely athletic, was able to jump, was able to do cartwheels, whatever. This is not about Alexander Karelin's ability. He was also a great speaker. He was also a great thinker. What he said in an interview, he was asked, what advice would you give to someone who hasn't found himself yet? And he answered with search. Keep searching. Because not being strong, not having found yourself, it's an excuse. You gotta keep searching. And if you can't search, if searching doesn't work, you have learned how to dig. If you can't dig, you need to start breaking twigs. And if you can't break twigs, you start to gather leaves. And what Karelin is trying to say in here is that you need to be persistent. And if you're not able to do the great stuff, start small and go over and over again. Never stop. Never stop searching. So this is the message that I would like to sell you. Aim upward and keep searching.